a brand new Django project, so a Python project which is configured to use Django to help us build websites, such a project can be created by running this Django admin command, which we briefly saw in action in the last course lecture, combined with the start project subcommand, and then a project name of your choice. For example, my page. But this project name is up to you. The first two parts are not. So let's run this command. And for this, first of all, navigate to a folder where you want to create this new project. Navigate to that folder here in your terminal or command prompt. You can navigate around with the cd command. So in my case, I will navigate to this Academine Pro folder in the teaching folder, in the development folder, which exists on my system. You can navigate to any other folder of your choice, for example, simply to the desktop or anything like that. If you're not sure how to navigate around with the cd command on Windows or on Mac OS or wherever you are, attached you'll find a resource that helps you with that. Now, once you navigated into that folder, you have the place where this new project should be created. So therefore here, I now run Django admin start project my page, or any name of your choice here, but I will stick to my page. Hit enter, and this will now seem like it didn't do anything, but actually it did create a new folder now in that folder into which you navigated. So in my case, there will be a new My Page folder, which was created in this Academine Pro folder. You can see it here. And this My Page folder now contains a manage.py file and then a subfolder with more Python files. Now that's nice to have, but I don't want to edit my code or my project here with the default Explorer or Finder and the default text editor. Therefore, instead, we want to set up a development environment. And that's what we're going to do next. So to work on our Python code, on our Django code, on this project we just created, we want to set up a development environment which is easy to use and which makes working on the code more fun and simply gives us as a developer an easier time. And for that, we need an IDE or a code editor. Now, you can use your favorite Python editor. For example, you could use PyCharm, but my recommendation is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is a free editor which is available for Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. And you can simply download it and install it from code.visualstudio.com. And the great thing about Visual Studio Code is that you can use it for Python, you can use it for HTML, for JavaScript, for CSS, for C++, for Java, whatever you want. You can edit basically any kind of code with it because it supports extensions, and you can install extensions to help you with your specific project. So in our case, we are going to look for extensions that help us with Python. So therefore, the first step is to download and install Visual Studio Code from code.visualstudio.com. But then as a second step, we're going to configure it. And we're going to install helpful extensions that help us with editing Python code. Now here I opened up Visual Studio Code, this IDE which I just installed, and it might look a little bit different for you because I already customized it a bit. Here under View, Appearance, you can control if you have a status bar at the bottom, for example, and I disabled it here for me. And you can play around with the appearance settings here to tweak it to look the way you want. In addition, I have this dark look, which you can also set if you want to by going to Preferences and then Color Theme. And here I'm using the Dark Plus theme. You can of course use any theme you want and use a light look or whatever you want, but I will stick to Dark Plus here. Now we want to work on the extensions that help us with editing code and help us with editing Python code specifically. For this, you should go to View, Extensions, or use the shortcut which you see here. And then there, I already have a bunch of extensions installed. Now I will name you the extensions you should install as well. And that would, for example, be the Python extension. Simply search the marketplace for Python and select this Python extension and then install it. Now, as I said, I already have it installed, but you just need to install it with one click. Now, once that is installed, there is another extension I recommend, and that's the Pylance extension. The Pylance extension also helps with Python development and gives you smart autocompletion, suggestions, and analyzes your code and is able to detect certain code errors. Now, both extensions are technically optional, but they will make your life as a Python developer a bit more convenient. And that's it. You don't need to install anything else, and therefore now you can go to View, Explorer, or use the shortcut and go back to this initial view. And now it's time to open our Python project. For this, I'll click on Open Folder here, and then simply open that project folder which we created a couple of seconds ago. In my case, this My Page folder, which I created with the Django admin command. Click Open, and this will load this project into the editor. Now I'm going to zoom a bit in so that this is all a bit bigger and easier to see. And you can, of course, adjust everything here the way you want by going to Code, Preferences, Settings, and playing around with the view settings here. Now, I will temporarily turn on my status bar because there I now want to ensure that we're using Python here and that this Python project is detected correctly. For this, I'll click on manage.py, this Python file, and now Visual Studio Code detects that I'm working on a Python project here. That's why it also opened up the Python extension documentation here. I will close that though. Now at the bottom left, it now picked one of my installed Python interpreters. And if you only have Python installed once on your system, there probably is a good chance that you have, then it should have picked the version you previously installed. Now I got multiple Python versions installed, and therefore I will click on this selected Python version down there, and then simply scroll to pick that Python version I installed a couple of minutes ago. In my case, Python 3.9. And this simply now makes sure that this Python version is used for evaluating and executing all that code here. Now with that, I'm going to close this status bar again. And now we got this selected. There also is a .vs Code folder which was created now. This folder simply saves some project-specific settings. In this case, it saves the Python interpreter which should be used. This is only relevant for VS Code, not for Django or Python. Now there's one other thing I want to do, and for that I will remove this empty line here and then save this file, and now go to Code, Preferences, Keyboard Shortcuts, and there search for Format Document. Now this is a shortcut which will automatically reformat your code to make it easier to read. If it's not bound for you already, you can bind it now, otherwise you see the shortcut here. And if I now press this shortcut here, in this manage.py file where I deleted this extra blank line, you should get this pop-up asking for AutoPAP 8 to be installed. Maybe you're not getting it, for example, because you already have it installed, and that's of course then also fine. If you do get it though, press yes, and this will now install an extra extension for Python, which will be used by VS Code to format your code. You can then close this terminal which opened up and press the shortcut again, and it should now re-add this empty line, which proves that the installation works. And this is simply a little convenience which helps with formatting Python code and which keeps your code easy to read and follows the PEP8 styling guidelines, which are of course important styling guidelines for Python projects, totally independent of Django. You can learn more about PEP8 in a resource attached to this lecture if you're not sure what this is. Now, with all of that, we got our project set up. Now I want to have a closer look at the actual Python files which were created here before we then finally can get started working on that code.